Welcome to the Heads Up Poker Podcast. This is Steve Barton, and I'm here with
Mike Snyderman. How you doing, Steve?
Good. I've had a good week so far. How's your week been?
No complaints. It's good. Quality time with my son. Yesterday, we went to the trampoline park, and we went to the zoo. Got to see the cheetahs run again. That's my favorite thing to do. Go to the wild safari park. Cool. A trampoline park. I've never even heard of that. Yeah. No, I think those are all around here. If you had a kid, you'd know. It's just it's a great way to tire the kid out.
I bet.
I wanted to sit there and just read my book, but he demanded that I come in, which is bad because I wrenched my knee. Because I can't just stand there and I have to there's cute moms running around, so I have to try to, do a big flip they had a basketball hoop there. Oh. And last time I was there, I jumped up high and dunked and fell down awkwardly. And, this was, I am a joke. Never mind. I won't even get into motivational reasons for these sort of things, but, it was fun.
Oh, right on. Cool. Good deal.
I can turn the most, basic experience into some sort of operatic failure. It's pretty funny, but anyways, that's my gift.
You and me both.
You can put out fires and I can create them internally in a metaphorical way. I quickly wanted to say, I don't think we've mentioned our intro music yet. That is my sister.
Yeah, I don't think we have. Yeah,
I don't want to just say, and I don't even know. I think that's years ago. I mean, she's married with a couple kids, and her husband, one of their buddies, they live in Brooklyn, which is, everybody's an artist or musician of some sort, at least amongst her, social milieu. But anyways, that's Cops and Robbers. I don't even know if you can. And she had another group called Frauke, Frauke. And maybe somewhere up on iTunes or something you can check out their music. And it's usually just jokey kind of fun music. And, but
it's a catchy song, though. I like it. My brother, the first time he heard it, he's like, where'd you get that song? He's like, it's really cool. It's catchy. It's perfect for your podcast. Okay. It's Mike's sister. He's like, no kidding. I was like, yeah, it is.
And she has yet to properly thank me for she doesn't realize that I'm projecting her into a new social status here. But, anyways, she's busy. I can't blame her for missing out on this obvious thing here.
Oh, is she your younger sister or older? Or?
Yeah, younger sister.
Cool.
I got younger sister, younger brother. My brother's an Einstein fellow for the energy department, and my sister's a successful businesswoman. And I'm an unemployed poker player who's quickly running out of money. And it's usually the firstborn who's the big achiever in the family. And this could open up a vein of self-pity that no one wants to listen to. But it was funny. I was a straight A student and,
were you really?
good grades and all that. But, dropped out of graduate school 3 times, generally rudderless. Sort of the biography of, a few people who end up playing poker. But
interesting. I didn't know. I was a straight A student, too.
Okay. Well, when did you become a fireman? How old were you? But you kind of jumped. You had a sort of a semi, or at least some purpose, fairly early, right? I mean,
I did. Yeah. When I was 14 or 15, I wanted to do some kind of public service. I remember wanting to be a cop, and then I talked to one policeman, and I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. And then after that, I went down to the fire station, talked to a bunch of the firemen, and I was sold. At 16 years old, I started, and then I got hired just before I turned 22. I was on a mission after that. I was like, this is what I'm doing, and nothing else matters. There is no plan B. I was just on it. Looking back, it was impressive how dedicated and motivated I was. But at the time, there was just no other option.
You goddamn boring, organized motherfucker. I despise you. No. I definitely envy people. Like my best friend from high school, his dad was an architect, and by the time he was 12, he's like, I'm going to be an architect. And it's not even, he's a very successful architect and loves it, and he's, he had his plan. And to speak of course, the general, the geniuses and the artists always, Steven Spielberg, directed his first feature-length film when he was 6 years old or something,
You know what I think it is? I was talking to somebody about this the other day. I don't remember who, but it's just finding something that you really love and heading towards that, and damn the consequences. Finding something that you really, really like, because then you're going to want to do it all the time. You're going
right.
to, those late nights of editing this podcast, like if I didn't enjoy editing it and going through this, I would have quit on like probably before even the first episode, because the first one we recorded didn't even work. And it was like, I mean, there's been times where I've worked on this thing for 4 hours and then saved it and it didn't save and I got to do it all over again. And I'm like, oh my God. And if I didn't love to do it, I'd quit because I'm sane.
I like eating caramel and getting lap dances. How do I get paid for that, Steve?
Oh, that's an interesting, maybe a bouncer at a club. I don't know.
The answer is I don't. Well, I guess competitive eating, maybe, if I really know.
Eating caramel.
Oh, by the way, before we let people know that we have a great interview today,
that's right.
there is a payoff for listening to this banal conversation.
Yes.
Soon you'll get to listen to Mr. Jared Tendler, and who I believe we had a very good interview with. So I think that'll be very interesting for people. Of course, most people will know he's the author of The Mental Game of Poker and is kind of the mastering, the tilt control and all the different stuff that poker players need to do. And
he's
it's
kind of
interesting.
the reigning authority on the psychological aspects and advantages to having a strong mental game.
And he's a nice guy. He's nice to talk to.
Yeah, very very cordial, very very good guy. It was I think it was a good interview. It was fun.
So I don't know. Should we jump and do at least one poker hand before we get on to Mr. Tendler? Is there anything any interesting hands you had recently?
Yeah. Let's see. There's one here. Okay, this one's kind of interesting. I've got.
I'll be the judge of that, sir.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Okay, I've got ace 10 suited. I'm under the gun.
This is live cash, 2-3.
Live cash 2-3. We're 8-handed, and this is the first hand of this table. I got there at like 8 in the morning. I had just gotten off of work, and I felt like playing for an hour or two while the wife was at school. And I thought, okay, they just opened this 2-3 table. There's 8 players. We just sat down, just got our cards. Some guys are still taking their chips out of the rack, and I get ace 10 suited under the gun. Ace of spades, 10 of spades. Are you playing or are you dumping?
Love the suited aces.
Okay. All right. In my mind, I couldn't dump it in this spot. Like, had I known what the table was or anything, then maybe, but I just felt like firsthand, I got to raise with this.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like, we've talked before, like, this is something that I should be, like, investing a lot of time in, developing specific ranges, on a certain table. I almost always open the suited ace there. I mean, I think people would say, like, ace 7, ace 8 suited, you dump, but ones that have the straight possibilities, too, even under the gun, ace 4 suited, ace 10 suited, yeah, you're gonna open for sure.
Okay. That's what I did. I opened to 13. And I kind of, just the way the dynamic of the table was, like people were still kind of talking, didn't really like, oh, I have 2 cards now. Like it was literally the first hand. I kind of expected everyone to fold, and then I was just going to get the blinds. Like that was my expectation, but that was very, very wrong. What happened was the guy to my left called, under the gun +1 called, middle position called, and the small blind called, and the big blind called. So we go 5.
A lot of money in that pot already.
There is $65 already, and we go 5-handed to the flop. And the flop is the ace of clubs, king of spades, 8 of diamonds. So I flop top pair with a okay kicker, and the small blind checks and the big blind checks, and it's on me. There's 65 in the pot. What you're betting here, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Although we can already see all sorts of problems with this one, can't we?
Yes.
Potentially, under the, no one, anyone who calls here, on a rainbow flop, your first instinct is already going to think I'm second best. But I think you gotta c-bet it here. You opened an ace and you hit an ace.
Yeah.
You get an ace with a decent kicker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if my first instinct is, first of all, you're going to be, well, potentially out of position. I mean, I think you got to bet it and just play it from there. But obviously, you get called. You're going to be in major sort of pot control mode, which might be very hard to do because, you don't want to get in 100 big blinds with ace 10.
Yeah.
Which, and this pot is already inflated here. So, what were your thoughts at the time?
My thoughts at the time were kind of that. I was afraid if anybody called, I mean, I raise pre-flop, and if I fire on the flop and they call, they got to figure me for at least an ace. I didn't want to really bet more than half pot and bloat it even more. So my thoughts were to bet kind of small and just see what happens. And so I bet 25. The guy to my left, he calls 25. Middle position folds. The small blind calls 25, and the big blind folds. Now, the small blind I've played with quite a bit. He's very loose. He'll call with second pair. He'll call with gut shots. So with him, I wasn't worried about. The guy to my left, I'd never played with before.
Okay.
So this was literally the first hand I've ever played with him. So we go three-handed to the turn.
Quickly, the bet sizing.
Yeah.
This paradoxically, because I'm like so unsure I'm not super confident that I have the best hand. I almost might bet bigger here, just to like first hand say, listen, I have it. So you're trying, so the ace jack and maybe the ace jack maybe folds and someone doesn't call with a gut shot or king jack. I mean, I don't know if that's even good advice. I'm just thinking right there where it's, betting small. Maybe you look nervous where, you bet bigger, you bet 40 and you're saying, okay, you open under the gun, you're betting big and, hopefully like the one pair hands, I mean, ace queen can't fold there. I don't think that's a bad move on if someone did that, but,
yeah, I don't think I'm getting ace queen to fold, but
I guess
right.
I guess that you'd be only targeting. Anyways, just throwing it out there to similar situations. I mean, if there's a hand where I know I'm not going to double barrel, like I'm out of position, or this is the way I usually think more with air than with. But I'm like, if I'm already committed to, I like to think right away whether I'm going to be double barreling this hand. I'm already kind of thinking two streets, anyways. In this one, I would be already thinking, I only really want to put one bet on this damn hand.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean? So, yeah. But anyways, so there's $140 in the pot going to the turn?
140 on the turn. The turn is the 5 of hearts. So the board now is ace of clubs, king of spades, 8 of diamonds, 5 of clubs. I'm sorry, 5 of hearts.
Okay.
Doesn't really matter because I didn't pick up my backdoor spade draws, and it's rainbow now, so basically just think of it as a rainbow board. Are you checking or betting this? 140 in the pot. Everyone, let's see, the guy to my left has 200 behind, the other guy has 200 behind. Yeah. I've got him covered with 300.
I don't know. You bet, and you're almost... I don't know if you can't say you're committing yourself to the pot if someone shoves. But, I mean, if I were the guy on your left and I saw you bet like what I thought would be kind of a scared amount, if you bet 45 here or something, I'd be tempted to raise with my weak ace here, maybe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you could get, check call though. I mean, if you bet 45, he might just call. Where if you check, maybe he bets 75.
Yeah,
or something.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't know. You just can't love your hand at this point. Although, I mean, it's still like you said. The guy on your left you never played with before, so you don't know if he just saw a suited ace too. If he saw ace 7 of hearts or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is he calling there? Is he one of those people who just? I mean, I sympathize. I'm kind of like that, who just always want to see a flop with a suited ace. And the other guy, like you said, he could have king jack, king 10, or some one pair hand where you're not really worried about him.
Yeah.
I mean, you could be up. The guy on your left, you could be up against a set hypothetically here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough spot. I would almost be in check give up mode. I don't know. Is that I'm trying to give sound advice, not what I would do. I would barrel again. I would have bet bigger and then probably barreled again, thinking, well, the guy doesn't have an ace king because he would have raised.
Okay.
And if you bet big now in the turn, you're repping a real big hand. You're repping 2 pair or better almost.
Yeah.
And so people only should be, they would have to be putting you on a very narrow range to fold. But I mean, generally speaking, I mean, this is like what we've established. I'm a sputard, but yeah, it's either bet big or don't bet at all, and then evaluate what they do.
That's kind of where I was at. This is where I see the power of position, because I kept thinking to myself, man, it'd be really nice if I had the button right now, instead of being stuck in the middle.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And anyways, the small blind checks. I decided to check and pot control and see what the guy to my left did, and then he checks. So it checks through on the turn. At that point, I'm kind of liking my hand. If they check. Then the river is the jack of clubs. Yeah, so it's ace, king, 8, 5, jack. And I notice immediately that when the jack comes out, the guy to my left kind of sits up in his chair. He rises up 2 or 3 inches. And I've always had that to be a tell of strength. And I don't know, maybe lately I just haven't. I remember a pro talking once, and he was saying that he writes down every tell that he sees, and he records whether it was correct or not. He said after a year or two, you have this running log of all these tells, and you know that when you see this tell, it's 70% accurate. Or when you see this tell, it's only 40% accurate, or whatever. And I think I need to start doing that. But anyways, he did that. And then on the river, the small blind checked again, and it's on me. What would you do here? There's 140 in the pot.
Never betting here. I mean, you're never getting better to fold. I mean, I guess you could get worse to call possibly, if there is an ace rag in there. But yeah, I think I'm checking every time there. Okay. Maybe, I mean, if you really want to play it tricky, I would check raise maybe against a certain villain. You think he just doesn't who's going to value bet a 1 pair hand and maybe just doesn't have the courage to call, but yeah, check. I think check's the only. I guess the other possibility, if you're going to call a bet for half pot, buy showdown, cheap. Bet 45, so you don't have to call a bet 80. Do a little blocking bet out there, and then hopefully the guy, even with 2 pair, just calls. But I mean, he checked the turn, so yeah, I would check and just hope he checks behind. And you're against 2 people here now too, so there's both of them could have 2 pair.
Yeah.
So
okay.
What did you decide to do?
Well, I checked.
Okay.
And then the guy to my left, he bet 30.
And
then the small blind called 30. So the pot's 200, and it's 30 for me to call.
I mean, I guess you should never be good here. But, if they both have a crappy ace, you'll feel. I had a hand similar to this. I don't remember the details. I didn't write them down. Where it was a limped pot, and I had 3-5 in the small blind, and the flop was like 10-3-5, and I led out, and 2 people called.
Yeah.
And then I bet the turn, and 2 people called. In the river, I figured there's a bunch of other 2 pair crap out there. I forget what the hand was, but I just decided to check, and I was with the intention of calling.
Yeah.
And the big blind, one of them bet and one of them called. And I think one of them bet 200 and the other, I can't remember the numbers, but I was getting better than 4 to 1 on a call on the river. And I just said, well, one of them's got to have 2 pair here, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how I folded, but naturally I had the best hand.
Yeah.
And one of them neither of them even had top pair.
Yeah.
So they were just, so not only should I have been calling there, I should have been betting big for value, I guess, but I didn't like the way the board.
Yeah, you should have been betting.
Yeah, I didn't like the way the board ran out. I think it was 10-3-5, and then it was Jack Queen, and not that anyone had Ace King in their thing, but certainly whatever it was. But I was just, and like I said, I'm almost never folding best hands on the river. As you know, my problem is just calling too much. So this one was like, I was like, what the F did I just do there? How did I? But, and it was a three-way pot, and it's similar. One guy bet, the other guy calls. I'm like, well, one of them has to have me beat here. And of course, I had a pretty strong hand, but, bottom two pair. But, so what ended up happening here?
Well, it was on me. It's 30 to call, and I think this is similar to the hand that you had a while ago where you were like, just look at the pot odds, see what you're getting on pot odds, and just call the damn bet, because I just did the math right now. It's like 6 2/3 to 1.
Sure.
And you know what happened was I let my tell of the guy sitting up in his chair, I think, affect me too much.
Right.
Because the jack didn't do anything for him. I folded and thinking there's no way I'm good here. And, they both flipped over king queen.
Ugh.
They didn't even have an ace. I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Really? I can't believe that just happened.
Wow. And, yeah. I mean,
there was two things that factored into my fold on the river. And one of them was the guy sitting up in his chair and then betting on the river. And the other one was, the small blind calling. And I remember reading an article, I think it was by Mike Carroll. He calls it overcalling. And he says, if you, maybe it was David Clancy in his theory of poker, but, somewhere I remember reading that, if a guy bets out and another guy calls, your hand has to be a lot stronger to be able to call a third bet, because now you have to beat both of them. And, I think I let that play into my psyche too much, of him sitting up in the chair and the other guy calling
Yeah, I think that's an easy call. I mean, like you said, if you call 7 times and only write once, you've made money.
Yeah.
Yeah, although it just seems like, I think that's, it's probably, like I said, the math of it, like I said, I think the one where I was upset with myself was when I had the pocket queens, and even though it was a horrible board with the ace king out there, it was against a guy who I knew was bluffy and aggressive, and I was getting 3.5 to 1 on a call, and, somehow I folded, even though, objectively speaking, he's got at least 25% or more bluffs in there.
Yeah.
But, of course, but on the other hand, some of the hands we've discussed, you really rely pretty heavily on your live reads, and they're pretty, that's definitely a strong part of your game.
Okay.
So I wouldn't necessarily just throw the book out on that, though, that, I'm just going to ignore this shit,
Yeah.
I got tricked here. I mean, this is stuff I sort of pay attention to. I mean, you got to go with it. I definitely don't break it down and take notes, or that I can't really imagine. Maybe just because I'm lazy, but like, when man sits up, this or that. But that's funny. I can't remember this one session I had recently though, where I read a guy's bet is weak, and I just bluff shove, like this was a big pot where I had 3 bet, he had 3 bet, I had 4 bet, he had flatted. And then he let out with a weak bet. I had ace king, and it was like 3-9 jack, and he let out with a weakish bet, let into me for like 400 or 500. And I think there was quite a bit in the pot. It was big raises pre-flop.
Mm-hmm.
And I bluff shoved on him, the ace king. I had air, and he quickly folded, and I showed it. He asked if I'd show, so I showed it. And then after, I was talking with the guy, and then afterwards there's another one where he bet a river big. This guy just bluffs a lot, and I took a long time. I had second pair, which is a really strong hand against this guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I paid him off. He had top pair, and talking to this other guy, he's like, it just felt different. Like he was nodding. He's like, I knew he had it that time. I'm like, yeah, so did I. So I don't know what the live read is, but somehow you can't ignore that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, it shouldn't be a bigger factor than the math, but, because, if you're always putting somebody on a super, it should be about their ranges and not, I mean, I would have called thinking I'm beat there though, but I think there's just so much damn money in the pot.
I know, and it's such a small bet. I'm like, yeah. After that, I was like, oh man, what a.
Did you tell him what you had?
No, I didn't say anything.
Okay.
I just tossed it in and saw both their hands, and I thought to myself, what the hell did you just do? I can't believe I did that.
What is the guy betting for there? I mean, I don't know. It's just
he must have thought he was good and just trying to throw in a little bit of value, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, this is when I'd say I definitely wasn't not going to bet, but I considered check calling, and it's like, check raising.
Yeah,
would have been a nice time for that. Of course, yeah. But I'd be unnecessary because maybe they would have called. I don't know. That's just a weird hand, man. Like betting 30 into that pot on the river there, where the guys, you can't be confident. I guess it's a value bet. Yeah. He thought he was good, but if I'm in his position every time, I think one of you has a weak ace, has an ace. Yeah. But that sucks.
Yeah.
Kind of. But you being a Tendler follower, this did not put you on tilt, Steve, right? You had 10 seconds of momentary frustration, and then you just.
It didn't put me on tilt nearly as much as the one where I had. I flopped the ace with the ace 10, and the guy shoved with kings, and I folded.
Right. That
one effed me up for the rest of the session. This one, I thought, oh, you idiot. And I'm like, well, that's a hand for the podcast. And so
right.
I took a little break, went out to the car, wrote the hand down, and after that, I forgot about it. And so maybe that's what I need to do after a hand from now on. Instead of just sitting there at the table stewing, I need to go out, write it down, and then because once I got it down on paper, it was like, okay, that's done, handled. I can think about it later. Just go focus on the session.
Right.
And yeah, maybe you know what? I guess that's what the lesson is in this one: is when you have a hand like that, just remove yourself from the table, put it down on paper, and then come back to it later, like we're doing now.
And an ace 10 suited just isn't a great hand.
Yeah,
it's a good hand. So early in the session, you're just putting yourself in tough spots when you're going to open a hand like that and play out of position.
Same principle as the 4-6 suited last week. You just kind of get in these awkward situations that you don't know if you're good or not.
Right. But this time ace 10 suited would have been wildly profitable if you had a set of balls on you, sir.
Yes,
no, I'm
and
just
called
yeah.
$30 for a pot of 200.
Right.
Yeah. Oh well. How about you? Do you have any hands?
Yes. Again, I did my thing the other night where I ran up a little bit of profit at 5-5 and then decided to jump to the 5-10 table.
Okay.
For reasons that I cannot remember.
Okay.
I think, usually the 5-10, there's always like the one, weak ass player there, I guess. You're like, oh, I want to, and I don't know. I can't even justify it. But I even went over there and like ran it up a little bit. I mean, these stories are just, sound so similar to the previous ones. But then it started getting short. Like first of all, I told myself I was going to walk away. Again, this is all, since we're speaking to Mr. Tendler, this is all mental game of poker 101. That's another one thing. I think quitting, Tendler said, is a skill. That's one. I don't know if you remember that part of the book. That jumped out at me with the big blazing stars next to it. But anyways, at this table, I got up a little bit and I said I was going to leave, and then I said I'm definitely going to leave if it gets shorthanded because there's a couple pros here, and it just puts me out of my comfort zone. But no, I'm still there when it's 5-handed, and I forget. I won't get in the hand. Great, but I mean the play's really pretty aggressive. There just been a play where one guy 5-bet and a guy flatted, and then the 5-better bet, whatever 800, I can't remember whatever it was in the flop, and the guy shoved all in for 2,500, whatever it was, and the other guy folded, and then this guy, it was like a Jack 10 6 board, and this guy flipped over the guy who shoved flipped over ace deuce off.
Ooh, wow!
So this is the kind of table it was.
It's nuts.
Yeah, and the two guys that were the reason I could justify being there, because somebody at the other table was like, "Oh, those guys are really bad, deep pockets." I don't know if they were like Armenian or a heavy accent. Two guys with like really nice watches, dressed up, and they were there to gamble.
Yeah.
And I actually had a similar move to the Ice Deuce, where the guy on my left, he was 3-betting quite a bit, and I just did I call them the Mike McD moments, from Rounders, where he says where he's talking about how Johnny Chan, I'm going to win this hand. So I had 9-6 off. I had limped. This was blind versus blind. I guess it wasn't a 3-bet, it was a raise. And I just said, I don't give a shit. I'm winning this hand. And I think I had like 3,000, and this guy had like 600 or something in front of him. So the flop was Queen XX, and he bet, and I just called. Like, it was the worst possible flop. It was like Queen Jack 3. I had 9-6 off. I mean, I had absolutely nothing, but I just called.
Yeah. No hope of improvement.
Yeah. And basically, I was going to just check on the turn and hope he checked, and then just jam on the real big on the river. But the turn was, there's 2 hearts in the flop, and the turn was a king. And, he bets, like I said, he only had 600 or 700 to start this hand. I forget the numbers, but he bet about 250. And I took a couple seconds before jamming all in. And somehow, I'm not going to say it was a sick read. It's probably pretty badly played, really, because this guy almost has to call with any pair.
Yeah.
But I just said to myself, he's not going to call without a king. Basically, because I was being the nittiest person at this table. I was really trying to pick my spots and wait. So I thought he'd give me. And the guy only had to call like, I don't remember the numbers. He had probably 400 in the pot. And 12, 13. I think he only had like 250 more in his stack, so he was,
Oh wow.
Yeah, he was getting like 4-1 in a call, so it really was pretty bad. And he actually folded face up Queen 10, but he's like, "Oh, I know you had 2 hearts, and now you hit your king." And he just second pair was no good to him. But I was really just thinking he had nothing, and I was just going to take it. I wasn't really trying to push him off a pair.
Yeah.
Because he had been really kind of just active and, was caught in a couple bluffs. But so I'm not going to say this was like a real Ninja Jedi moment where I read anything. But this is the kind of table it was anyways, is my point.
Yeah.
So, but my bust out. So, but then I had to fold. I did one of those. I played a similar hand against a pro, and I had like a missed draw and check raised him on the river big, and he called with 1 pair, and that I gave away like $1,100 that hand. And so, but my final hand, I just quickly it was a straddle every pot, 5-handed.
And what, it's 5-10, so the straddle's 20?
5, 10, 20. So
wow.
the guy on the button, young Asian dude had been betting, raising a lot and very active, as pretty much was the remaining 5. It was just, it was just a bash fest. But I was the one who was the most timid, obviously waiting for hands, even though I got caught in the big bluff. So I've been 3-betting less than others. But anyways, the guy to my right on the button bet 65, and I have ace 10 off.
In the small blind?
In the small blind, I raised to 200. And the big blind quickly calls. I'm sorry, the big blind quickly calls, and the straddler folds, and the original raiser folds.
Okay, so the button raised to what?
65, and I made
65.
I made it to 200.
You made it 200. And then the big blind folded?
Big blind called, and the straddler folded, as did the button.
Okay, so it's just heads up to the flop.
Yeah, there's $485 in the pot. And the flop is like Jack, 4 deuce, and there's 2 spades. And I have ace with the 10 of spades.
10 of spades, okay.
And this is kind of one of those things where I was kind of talking before, where I'm just going to like bet big and say I have it, kind of thing, rather than like.
And which one's the spade? Is it the Jack, the 4, 2?
I think it was the Jack and the deuce were the spades.
Okay.
4 was a club, I think.
Okay.
And so I wasn't going to like what I was saying before is like I really only want to fire one. I want to just like fire a big bet, rep a big hand, and take it down. So I bet pretty big, and there's like 475 in the pot, like I said, and I bet 375.
Okay.
Making it look like I got a big pair, and I'm trying to push him off a draw, maybe. And he quickly calls.
That's not good. How much do you have behind?
I think I started the hand with about maybe $1,700.
And what did he have?
He had me covered. He had probably 2,200 or something.
Okay. And then he just quickly calls. Huh.
And the turn. So I don't even have this written down in front of me. The number, it was 475 and then 750. So it's 1225 in the pot. Would that be correct? I think that, yeah, it's 1225 in the pot.
Okay.
And the turn is the ace of spades.
That's a nice card.
So I now have a pair of aces and a decent spade, the 10 of spades. And so what is your move here? Obviously, at this point, I'm hoping I have a jack. I mean, I'm hoping he has a jack.
Yeah.
He called with king jack, or maybe he called with pairs of middle pair, pocket eights, pocket nines. It's hard to put him on spades because he would not have the ace of spades. So what is he? Unless, king, queen of spades, perhaps.
Let's see. Okay, so as the action went, the button raised to 65 because there's a straddle every hand.
Mm-hmm.
You re-raised, you 3-bet to 200, and the big blind called.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to have a pretty strong hand there because he's calling not knowing what the button's going to do.
Right. That was my thought.
Yeah, he's calling not knowing what the button's going to do.
And 200, he's only got 2,400. So even if it was like pocket, I mean, if I'm him, even like pocket threes and fours, and yeah, I didn't know what to put him on the range there. It's kind of strange. This would be the amateur at the table, well, along with myself, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know. Well, two of them were definitely pros. Were very, very good. I played them a bunch of times.
And how long had you been playing with the big blind?
Maybe an hour.
Okay. And what had you ever played with him before?
I think actually he was at the 5-5 table, and he was never. I don't know. He played kind of a tight range of hands. I thought he was, tight, solid, but not a real creative player, and someone who's, you could push around post flop maybe a little bit. That was maybe my first reaction.
Okay.
But here, basically, it's hard to put him on spades here because what spades is he calling with? The jack of spades is out there. I've got the 10 of spades, and then the ace of spades is out there. So king, queen of spades is like the only flush draw I can put him on, pretty much.
Yeah.
Jacks would be a hand that I'm trying to think what hands I would flat there personally with. I personally would 4-bet with jacks there.
5-handed, yeah.
But anyways, again, this is all after the fact. I'm not basically, the turn comes and, I don't have, like I said, I already have $575 in there. And only, $1,100 something in my stack. I shouldn't say only. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. This reminds me. I was thinking the other day for the first time I was listening to one of the hands we're discussing, and not just I keep thinking when we discuss hands, not just the levels we play, 2-3 versus 5-5 or 5-10.
Mm-hmm.
The real difference is in like the stack depth, because every hand I'm discussing, we're always like 300 and 400 big blinds deep.
Yeah.
And you're rarely more than 100 big blinds deep. So it really changes. That's something that I don't know if we highlight enough. I'm not like committed to this pot, but basically it's either I'm going to bet call. This is what I decide. I'm going to bet call, or I'm going to check shove. I don't know if you have a preference there. And again, this is all probably half tilt. Like I said, I've already lost 1,000 at this table, but I've got at this table the way it's going. Maybe not against this villain. I don't think this guy's going to float with crap. I'm like, he's got a pair. I really thought when he called the flop, he had a pair.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
And I should have now. I'd be worried about ace jack.
Yeah, that was my thought.
And I suppose he could float with ace king there. And now have me drawing to 3 outs, three tens. So I'm not like, oh yay, I've got him dominated. It's more like just from his range of hands, I should be ahead of them. Like I said, he's got middle pairs. He's got jacks, jack queen, jack king suited. So all the hands that he could call 3-bet with, and they could call the flop bet with, I think I'm clearly ahead of his range. Is basically what I'm thinking.
I don't know. I'm looking at this. Okay, you're right. I think the only thing that flush that makes sense is, I mean, you said you played with this guy before. He hasn't really gotten out of line. I don't imagine him doing that with something with like 8-7 of spades or whatever. So king queen of spades is the only thing that makes sense there. Ace jack makes sense.
Against the other 3 players at the table, this is real easy. I'm getting it in. Again, not super confident, but they're just capable of. They're more likely to have some sort of goofy ass hand. They're more likely to have. I'm just going to play jack 9 and throw them off, or they're much more likely to if I check to them to just bet, to have floated, and if I check to them, they're going to bet crap. Where if I shove, they're going to fold. This guy again seems unlikely to put a lot of money into the pot without what he thinks is the best hand. Would be my one hesitation. But either way, like I said, I've got top pair. I've got outs to a flush, perhaps.
If you bet here, though, what is he calling with? I mean, he's not calling with kings anymore. He's not calling with queens. It seems like he would re-raise with the kings or queens on that flop.
He shouldn't be calling with. If I'm betting, it's basically if I think I'm best. Yeah, I'm not trying to. If I'm betting, it's because I think I got the best hand, obviously, and I'm probably going to get a fold. I don't know. With the stack depth I have, remember there's almost $1,200 in the pot.
Yeah, 1235.
I could go into check call mode, but it's check call mode is the same as check shove mode almost, unless for some reason if he has my thought was basically the money's going in here, and if I'm beat, I'm beat. But like I said, obviously I'd love to get it in with, for some reason, if I check and he shoves his pocket tens or jack king or whatever. I love that result. I'm going in absolutely dominating him. And obviously I don't want to go in behind, but yeah, basically I'm just like, okay, this is a strong hand. It's a ridiculously aggressive 5-handed table. I've got top pair and a flush draw. So again, I'm not, this is all justification. I'm not saying, but I decide I'm going to check shove. Like he does not have an ace in his hand unless he's got ace jack. And if he's got ace jack, he's got ace jack. What am I going to do? But even ace jack should not be in his calling range pre-flop in my mind. Ace queen or ace king maybe, but ace jack even suited, how pretty it is. I'm like, this guy's probably going to fold that. I don't know. So I decide I'm going to check shove because, like I said, I want to get a little extra money in. I want him to maybe think I've given up on the pot and I don't like the ace and he can steal it if he's got pocket nines or something. So I check, and he bets like 600.
Okay, half pot.
He bets about half pot, and I take about 10 seconds. Again, I've got like no fold equity here, so if he calls, I'm probably beat. I'm beat unless he's just like, F it, I'm calling with kings. If he had kings with the king of spade, then he's calling.
Yeah.
He's got to call. Mathematically, it's the right call too. I didn't feel great. One of those things in the sinking stomach where he bet, I almost folded. I'm like, this guy, is he really, what is he betting here? He's betting a better hand than I've got. I don't know. Again, typical me where I'm just like, my default is like, okay, I'm getting it in. I think my overall analysis of at least from this villain, what I thought, again, it turns out that, of course, my ranging him is wrong, but I like my general breakdown of what he would be calling a 3-bet with pre-flop, overcalling, and then what he would be calling a C-bet with, which is like pocket pairs. or some sort of jack combo, jack queen suited, jack king suited, perhaps ace jack. But anyways, he bets 600. I don't wait too long before jamming. He instantly calls, and he's got a flush. He's got 8-9 of spades.
Oh fuck, he did have that. Okay.
So, and no spade on the river, so I had outs, and yeah, I mean, I think it was just a really aggressive table, and 8-9 is a pretty hand, and he's like, I can stack somebody, and he did. But I was really surprised with what he turned over there. Like, yeah. I was worried about two pair or possibly a set where he actually had a set of jacks or a set of fours or deuces or whatever. I thought my breakdown was pretty decent, that there wasn't much of a chance that he'd have a flush there, but he had a flush. And there was another session where I showed up with 1,500 and had it up to 3,000 and left with nothing. I've had a lot of those. But so again, I don't know what the big lesson there is. Like, the lesson I took from this is just, this is again the deep stack game when you're playing. Well, this was 5-10, so I guess I started the hand with 160 big blinds or whatever, 170. But yeah, it's just much more perilous when you're playing. Well, not only higher stakes, but deeper.
Yeah.
Where I don't know. I've had so many of these. I wasn't like, I said nice answer and just got out of there and was once again happy to go to bed before 2 a.m.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, anyways, I don't know if you think, I think you probably would have been able to, not that we really know how you're going to play, but you might have, bet smaller on the flop and given up on the turn and check folded on the turn. And that would have been a more, right. Again, of course, you're also too smart to be 3-betting out of position against pros too, probably. So,
well,
I guess I got what I wanted here. I don't know. The guy was dominated pre-flop, putting money in the pot when he's behind, even with my ace high. But I don't know. I can't kill myself over the way I play this. I guess you could say I should just check call, because, like I said, I'm never getting to fold better. But of course he's going to be too smart to realize if I check call the flop, the turn, obviously with $600 to go, there's nothing I'm going to be folding to on the river. So I don't know. I still, again, I guess I haven't played enough hands, or maybe I didn't break this guy down enough to know, he probably, if I checked on the turn and he had pocket 9s or 10s, which was for some reason what I had in my mind that was his most likely hand, he'd probably just be grateful there was an ace that was slowing me down. He wouldn't be the type to bet it. Oh, good. He thinks that he doesn't have an ace. So he probably doesn't have a lot of bluffing hands there. If he bets the turn, it's because he thinks he has the best hand.
Yeah.
In which case, I guess it's a check fold on the turn, but it's like again, it's just the pre-flop thing. It's just, I guess 8-9 suited makes more sense than ace jack. You know what I mean? If you hit it, you can break ace queen, ace king. I don't know. I can't really kill the guy for his call. A lot of good things can happen with a hand, but I just did not think he had that sort of hand. It was just very hard to range this particular situation of what's his overcall range. I thought pairs and big aces would have folded on the flop because there was no ace, king, or queen there in my mind. I guess ace jack would have made sense too. But, anyways.
I don't think, I even said it. I said, we can't put him on 8-7 of spades here because he's got to worry about the straddle and the button behind him. Or I think I just said the button, but
right.
I didn't put him on that because how can you, unless he just thought, okay, the button's only stealing here. Maybe the button had done that 4 times in a row, and he thought, well, he's not calling here. He has 10-2 or whatever.
Yeah, he called right away. It was just, pretty cards. That was the level of this guy's. It wasn't like, he wasn't even thinking, what will I do if I get re-raised here? No, he wasn't doing. He wasn't a terrible player. He was, probably my level, but there I thought he just kind of played the hand poorly and got lucky. But Like again, I don't know. Like I'm not going to kill myself over this hand. Again, I'm killing myself over the session in that I should have left while I was ahead and just booked a win. And like I said, I didn't stick to my plan, which is what I'm always saying. I'm just not going to play any 5-10 or 10-20 until my bankroll is healthy. But at the very least, I'm always like, I cannot play shorthanded here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's just some of the hands I've discussed where it's just I shake my head afterwards in disgust, and it's like I was obviously so tilted and played it horribly, and I don't dislike this hand how I played it, and I mean I had outs too. I was even like, well, if the guy's got ace jack, at least I got outs. Not that that's a great excuse, but
no, I think your raise pre-flop was good. It's probably just a button steal. He probably had nothing, 4 or 5 or something. And so you're raising it up there when you try to steal the pot. The big blind calls, and then you go heads up. So unfortunately, you're out of position. I think on the flop, though, I probably would have bet less. You fired 375 into 485. That's a pretty hefty bet. I think if he didn't have a flush draw there, like if he, only had like king, queen, I think he's folding there to like 220, 250 at the most, I think you can accomplish the same, and save yourself, $150, on your flop bet. Then on the turn, that's where it gets kind of dicey. At first, the first thing I said was like, oh, that's a good card for you.
Right.
And the ace came, but then now obviously it was the worst card for you because he made his hand and then you're drawing now. By the time you get to the turn, I think the one thing I would have changed with that was just making a smaller bet on the flop, because I think a small bet gets the trash out of the way just as much as a big bet does. But he had something. He had a draw, and he knew if he hit, he was good.
Right. I mean, I guess I bet a little. I mean, my thing is my bet sizing is fairly consistently to the larger side, whether it's, I want to just set a pattern. Well, if you're going to call my 3-bet, it's immediately going to be a big bet on the flop you're going to have to deal with, kind of thing. You know what I mean? So, so to establish the fact that, my 3-bets are not just like, this is not a guy who's going to give up when he misses. You know what I mean? He's going to, which of course against the pros is not. They're like, well, there's an obvious counter strategy to that. You can float even to the big bets and then, put pressure on the turn or whatever. Yeah. But for the most part, my 3-bets, I'm usually going to be double barreling, and, you can just kind of own people with the bet sizing thing. You know what I mean? You just 3-bet to, cause a lot of those guys in like a limp pot, or if you bet 25, 3-bet to 75. Whereas, you bet 25 and you bet 100, and then if they call, you immediately, the next bet is 175 or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Either way, I need to like some balance and consistency in it. So maybe this bet, well, it didn't matter because he had a flop he liked, obviously. So I don't know if my 3-bet there was larger than the previous ones, how a pro would respond to that. My thought is always when I bet a little bigger, it's like, on a drawy board, it's like, oh, he's got an overpair and he's just trying to push the draws out. So if somebody does, if in that board, if he had 8s or 9s, it's a bet where I'm like, I'm just trying to take it down, but I'm trying to take it down with the best hand. But, in retrospect, because, that sort of bet changes everything. There's just an extra 300 in the pot. And if I'm going to barrel the turn, then, my bet's got to be bigger, and the whole pot's, exponentially inflated there.
I think I'm picking up a pattern of your bets, and I don't just mean here. I mean, since we started the podcast, I think you're right. I think you do 3-bet large, and then you fire on the flop large, and you might be able to make your 3-bets a little bit smaller, and then make your flop bets a little bit smaller. And this might kind of throw a wrench into the system anyways, because if they're so used to you making these big bets, and then all of a sudden you're making them 2/3 the size that you used to, they're going to have to figure that out as well. You know, it's just going to be something different.
Right. Yeah. No, I could change it up, but I think,
Can't hurt.
right. I just think, especially, well, this is maybe more for 5-5. Anytime you throw a white chip out there, it just immediately, like if there's any time where, if it's ever in a choice between betting 100, betting 85 or betting 115, I like throwing that white chip out there. I mean, if I'm looking for a fold, especially. So if somebody bets, somebody raises to 15 and somebody calls and I make it, 50 and they say they both call and there's 150 in the pot. Like my C bet is always going to be, I like throwing that white chip out there. You know what I mean? The $100 chip with the casino that I play. So I'm never C betting like 85, 90. It's always going to be 100 something. But, again, at the 5-5 level where people are going to be much more flop dependent, I think this is probably more profitable, chase the draws out and people are less, when you're firing that big on the flop, maybe with, second pair, they're going to be less likely to stick around and see what you do. I don't know. Again, it's fortunately here we're speaking to Mr. Tendler soon because this is like, again, my big issue with like, I think you're giving good advice, but I don't think, this hand was played horribly because it shouldn't have been played because quitting is a skill. And, like I said, I was playing too high for my bankroll, and when I was not in my comfort zone, playing shorthanded, late at night with a couple pros at the table. But, not that bet sizing and other things, the mechanics of the game I cannot improve at, but, yeah, maybe it's time to speak to Mr. Tendler now.
Let's see. Yeah, I guess it is time to bring in Mr. Tendler, shall we?
Let's do it, Steve.
Okay. All right. Now, without further ado, enjoy our interview with Jared Tendler. Welcome to the show, Jared Tendler.
Hey, Steve. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And I'm here with my partner in crime, Mike Snyderman.
Hello.
And Jared, if you could just give our listeners a quick rundown of what exactly is the mental game of poker, and how does that apply to playing the game?
So there are a lot of psychological dynamics that exist at the poker table. Kind of trying to read somebody. That's not what I do. What I do is take care of the psychology within each player. So that deals with anger issues or tilt issues, anxiety issues, focus, decision making, everything that's going to get you to be at your best mentally so that you can make the best decisions possible is really what the mental game is all about. And understanding how emotions affect decision making, and ultimately being able to solve those emotional problems, helps you to make better decisions consistently, which is what you need to do as a poker player.
Yeah, one thing that I really got out of your book is I read your first book. I haven't read The Mental Game of Poker 2. It's on my list. But one thing I really got out of your first book was having, I think you called it a warm-up routine and a cool-down routine.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that before reading your book, but I was probably about 70% when I would go out to play. Now I do it every single time. And I have some deep breathing exercises, and I do meditation for about 5 minutes. And after I do the breathing exercises, I feel a little bit kind of lightheaded almost, but calm,
Mm-hmm.
And then my final part of the routine is I talk to myself in front of the mirror and kind of psych myself up, Have you read the book, The Magic of Believing?
I haven't.
You haven't? There's a mirror exercise in there. And I basically do that. You basically just look yourself in the eyes and you psych yourself up before a session.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the way to the card room, I'll listen to some kind of motivational speech or something I also do hypnosis tapes. But I guess what I'm getting at is after reading your book, I realized how important that was. And I was kind of before doing it just by accident.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the main things that I got out of there. Why is it that is so important? I know it works for me, but what is it? Why does it work?
Same reason it works for every athlete, every professional who's preparing for something big, like a big speech, or if you're a trial lawyer, your opening argument. Reviewing and preparing to perform is pretty essential to every one of those endeavors. It gets you ready, and that readiness for me includes being mentally and technically prepared to correct the most common mistakes that are going to occur when you play. So, your warm up sounds nice. I think the thing that you're missing in a big way is just a pure technical review of the biggest mistakes that you would normally make. Now, it doesn't mean that those mistakes are guaranteed to show up every time you play, but you have to be ready to correct them. Otherwise, not only is it going to be costly, but you're going to repeat the same bad habits, which is only going to make them stronger. So every time you play and you make the same mistake, you get better at making that mistake. You want to get better at making the correction.
Okay.
So preparation tactically does that. And then from a mental standpoint, what it sounds like what you need is a confidence boost and a motivational boost, which makes me wonder if there's some underlying confidence issue or motivational issue that needs to be addressed more directly using injecting logic or some logic statements rather than boosting your confidence in a larger artificial way. You want to actually figure out what are the flaws that is taking away from your confidence or your motivation, and actually seek to correct those things as part of your warm-up. And that's not to say you can't do the things you're doing in your warm-up, but I think you want to add that element to make sure that you're actually correcting any flaws that exist there.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never even thought about it until looking at it kind of from an outsider's perspective in right now. But you're right. A whole lot of my routine is psyching myself up and boosting my confidence.
Jared, I'd also like to say that you've helped my game quite a bit with your book. After a losing session, I only scream and cry for like 10 minutes now.
And it used to be.
It used to be just on and on and on. I'm like, okay, inject logic, deep breath. Usually, actually, I'm just physically tired after such an outbreak that you wind down naturally. But
right, you're like a 2-year-old who's just crying themselves to sleep.
Yeah, pretty much. No, but well, I'm going to assume most of the people. I mean, the mental game of poker is like kind of this must read. I'm going to assume most people who hopefully listen to this podcast, of course, already know about the book. But for those who don't, I think the one thing that I have circled with the big stars on it, and you even announce, you say this is kind of the breakthrough where I saw things differently than everyone else, is when you say emotion is the symptom, not the problem. And I'm sure you can describe that better than I can. But basically, I mean, for years, people knew tilt was a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And the goal, people always said, well, once you start tilting, you need to recognize it. And that's kind of the big breakthrough here, and why so many people seek you out, I think.
Yeah, because
the goal is just not to tilt at all, because I'll let you explain it.
Well, I think you've highlighted, I think, something that is, I'm going to give you a little bit of credit here. I think it's a sophisticated part of the book that not a lot of people get or understand kind of intuitively right away. That their emotions are a byproduct of a deeper flaw. That not everybody reacts the same way to a bad beat. And so there has to be something that's more than just like an innate level of coolness for those people who are able to handle bad beats really well. It's that they understand the game better, so that there are differences in people's knowledge base. Now, if you understand that bad beats are a part of the game and you're still tilting, then all it means is that there's some other flaw. Like maybe you have expectations of perfection, or you hate losing. And if that's the case, then that's the issue that you have to deal with. But that once that issue is solved, the emotion disappears. So the idea of being tiltless is I think it's a way of thinking about the solution that's a little bit backwards, right? The way to become tiltless is actually to solve the problems that cause tilt. And once that happens, then there's no reason for it to even occur. It's like diffusing a bomb. Okay, exactly.
Now, with what you were talking about earlier, about how what I'm missing in my warm up routine is the kind of rehearsing what my weaknesses are, so I can work on them that specific session.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say, and because this is true. Let's say that I have a tendency, I'm getting better at it, but I do have a tendency to call to prove myself right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that I'm beat. I'm sure that, my 2 pair is no good. But damn it, I'll never know unless I put those chips out there. And I'm getting better at not doing that as often and just trusting my read. But I still find myself every now and then making those costly errors of throwing those chips out there when it's like, afterwards I review the hand and I'm like, there's just no way I was good there.
I think what we've discussed today pretty much answers it. Your whatever the lack of confidence that you have as a poker player, wherever that's coming from, it is compelling you. It's like an urge. It's an itch. You just can't avoid scratching.
Yeah.
It's compelling you to call, because if you fold, then you're not going to get the information. You're going to be in this vacuum where you're just not going to know whether or not you were right or wrong, and it's going to be you're not going to be able to tolerate that uncertainty.
Yeah.
So here's how it works. When you solve, or once you figure out what the confidence issue is and you solve it, then that urge or that itch is not going to be nearly as intense. And you're going to be able to easily talk yourself through and say, nope, that's not the right decision. And you can fold and know that no matter what happened, even if somebody was bluffing you, and it just you still knew that it was the right decision, and you can tolerate that. But the confidence issue is what is forcing you, in a sense, forcing your hand to push those chips in the middle.
Interesting. And that confidence issue could be something that happened to me when I was 3 years old, and I misinterpreted it now, and now it's affecting my poker game, or?
Sure, it could be that. It could be as simple as, I mentioned high expectations. It could be, when players have high expectations, they often don't give themselves enough credit for improvements that they've made or small successes that they've had, which are kind of building their foundational knowledge or their foundational experience as a player. And when you lack that, right? So when you have high expectations, you ignore that stuff. And when you ignore that stuff, it's very easy for you to think that you suck. When it's not like you suck that bad, it's that you just are not as good as you would hope. So there's a more accurate way of evaluating your skill as a poker player that, again, doesn't necessarily have to come back to childhood issues, although, we are a byproduct of our past. So if those issues are there, then, looking at them and solving them can be helpful. Or if the byproduct of those childhood issues are ultimately, about high expectations, for example, then you don't necessarily have to go back into your childhood to solve it. You just have to fix the source and the cause of those high expectations and bring them back down to something reasonable. And in that example, the inchworm concept from the second chapter is a great way of doing that.
Okay.
I think, that's another one that jumped out at me, because I'm someone who kind of works hard and watches a lot of videos. And I think you even mentioned, just because you've watched a bunch of Phil Galfond videos doesn't mean you're ready to play poker. And that's kind of, if you're a mental midget and if your C game is dreadful, then it really doesn't matter if you're not addressing that, like how hard you're hustling to go to the higher concepts, or to really, be able to think like the masters and the wizards do.
Totally. And it's funny, because I think this is one of those examples that is true in pretty much every sport or profession. I work with some day traders. I've got golfers. I've got people in other professions, and by comparison, many people think that increasing your technical knowledge of that thing, obviously we're talking about poker, increasing your poker knowledge is going to solve that emotional issue, and it may temporarily, but then that emotional issue is just going to pop right back up once you become more knowledgeable about that.
Right. And that's, probably a lot of people know this too, but this is how you became kind of interested in all this. Is you were a near professional athlete yourself, and you were right, and your own mental game was
exactly
inadequate. You felt, and then you started, and that's. But how did you switch over to poker? That I forget exactly.
So Dusty Schmidt, exactly.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
We just randomly met at a golf course in Oregon. A group of guys from different parts of the country all kind of converged, and we had a mutual friend, played golf one day, talked to him about what I did, and I think like 3 months later he called me because he was trying to make Supernova Elite back in 2006. So this is like one of the first years people were really doing that. And he was trying to do it in 10 months. He was literally ripping out his desktop computer out of the wall. He was throwing, mice and, breaking all sorts of, basically he ended up, he paid for our sessions based on the savings of computer equipment that didn't break. So, yeah.
And everyone recognizes that right away, I think.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think he said he broke like 2 computers and 25 to 30 mouses or something like that.
Oh yeah, it was they were just like lined up. All of it was like in a pile in the corner of his office. It just probably didn't even make sense to get rid of because it just kept piling back up.
Yeah, just a constant memory of his tilt.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's awesome.
By the way, this is this podcast Steve and I just started. So just if I can go off course here and ask you about podcasting, because Steve and I both listen to yours.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, I've listened to every episode.
Do you enjoy that?
Oh yeah.
Is that part of just the business model, or is that something you look forward to?
I mean, it's something I look forward to when I have the time for it. Like it's something that feels like a chore if there's just too much going on. And I've got a 7-month-old baby now, and so my time just becomes a lot more valuable. And so when I've got extra time, sure. I love being able to talk to high level people and just kind of get inside the minds of people that I wouldn't normally talk to. They're not clients, so they're it's cool. And obviously many of them are great players, and even the ones that aren't still have interesting stories. And I think, from a psychological perspective, it's valuable for people to hear about.
Yeah. How do you get a hold of most people? Like I've just been doing email, like I did with you. You just had a recent one with Daniel Negreanu. How do you get a hold of these guys? Is it through email, or do you run into them? Or?
Come on, Steve. This is Jared Tendler. Snaps his fingers, man.
Yeah, it's just like magic wand comes around. Little
not at all. I mean, just you got to work connections that you have. And there's somebody that we know at PokerStars, and they put us in touch with them. So I mean, by and large, it's on Twitter, social media. Find them where they are and hunt them down until they come on.
Okay. Just be diligent.
Yeah, it's like anything. Hard work means not taking no.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. That's encouraging.
Yeah. So some of your clients, I was just curious because listening, of course, to the podcast, these are all winning players.
Yeah.
Who have the same. Do you ever get anybody who's kind of a newbie and wants to like develop their mental game as they learn the game of poker? Someone maybe with money who obviously can.
Exactly. Yeah, it's only people who have made money later in their life and then want to start working on it. The guys playing micro stakes and don't have much. They just, I'm assuming cost is a big reason, and then also foresight. I think it's a big investment, and it takes a lot of, I think, awareness of your flaws before poker to understand what's going to show up while you're playing. I mean, the big thing is that I don't recommend for people, even if they have the money, to start working with me unless they really understand what their emotional issues are coming in, and that they understand what's most likely to come out playing poker, because what I do is secondary to learning how to be a good poker player. I mean, I might have a strong mental game, but I can promise you that the two of you are better poker players than me, because I don't work at that part of the game. I have a lot of peripheral knowledge, having been around it for 7 years, but it doesn't mean that I understand how to calculate
sure
and make those decisions. So the mental or emotional side, I think, is secondary.
Right. Well, you kind of anticipated my second question. I was going to be like, are there some players you can kind of sense are just lacking of basic foundational knowledge of the game, maybe, who come to you? I mean, just speaking to different players, you probably can tell that. No, you can't even sense that.
I mean, and I honestly don't even. There are certain things that the way in which people talk about how they study, how they approach the game, that I can kind of tell that they are not going to be an elite player, even if they're saying that they want to be.
Okay.
But I can't, from a tactical description, understand that.
Right. Well, you're never going to like yell at them. Damn it, man! You got to work on your pre-flop range. Kind of stuff. You're not.
Exactly.
Nothing any specific.
Exactly.
But,
just your pre-session routine.
I remember that was the other thing that jumped out in the book that I thought was also interesting, where you said, well, emotion is not necessarily the problem, but it's also a lack of emotion can be a problem.
Absolutely.
I don't know, because I've heard players say, I play better when I've been up for 24 hours because I no longer get angry. I've reached sort of a Zen state. Or,
so they're describing that they have a tilt problem. So if they solve that tilt problem, then they don't need to in essence destroy their mind to be able to become clear-headed.
Okay.
Right. So you can hear, in the way people talk, you'll often get an idea of what it is that they're compensating for, right? So there's a tilt problem in the example you gave that they're seeking to get rid of by being so exhausted that they can't think straight,
Right.
or have anything get angry, or anything anger them. I mean, now to some degree, I do know that there are players who, when they lack those issues, can play these monster long sessions and perform really well. They're, I think, rare, but it does happen. But the way that you've described it, it's a compensation, much like we've discussed today.
Yeah.
Can I ask quickly, like Steve, I have not yet read book number 2, which has been out there because, the mental game of poker.
Over a year.
Right, yes. Sorry, but book number 1, it does have a feel of like a once and for all kind of book. Like, okay, this guy has just laid it down what a poker player needs to do to be like mentally strong.
Yeah.
But to write book number 2, you must have obviously felt there were a few things you left out or things that you maybe learned more about that you wanted to share.
Well, yeah, book 2 was actually in the works from the beginning. In fact, the original idea was to put it all together.
Okay.
But book 1 got so long and so complex that it felt to be like too much to put it all together. But basically, the completeness of book 1 is completing the solving or the resolution of problems. Whereas book 2 says, well, now that you're either generally free or have mostly solved those issues, now what do you need to know in order to make you as good of a poker player as you can? And so the topics are like the zone. It's one thing to be free of tilt. It's another thing to be consistently performing in the zone or at your peak mentally. Yeah. And so understanding how to actually create that and not just have it happen randomly, mainly because you're running well, is an important thing to understand. And then other topics include learning more efficiently. So if you can learn faster than another player, then you can outpace their development and you can move up in stakes faster, or at least at a minimum maintain your position in the game longer because you'll be able to stay more relevant. Improving decision making. To me, decision making is a poker player's technique, much like a golfer's golf swing. It's the knife that makes the incision as a surgeon, right? That's the weapon that you're using is your decision making. And so understanding how to sharpen that tool is an important process. Improving focus, goal setting, which is directly connected to motivation and energy, self-discipline, and mental endurance are the other topics.
I like the one you mentioned about getting in the zone. I just ordered a book. It's called The Rise of Superman, and it talks about...
Oh, yeah, great book.
Oh, you've read it?
Yeah.
Okay, it's on its way from Amazon now. I haven't opened it.
Yeah, so that book will describe a lot of the potential and what you can do, but it's not going to give you, in my opinion, very practical strategies for how to get there, which is fine. I mean, it's books have different purposes, but yeah, it's a great book.
Okay.
How's being a dad now? Is baby tilt a new term we've come?
Baby heaven would be a better word.
Okay.
I mean,
yeah,
there's if she craps in your hand, it's you laugh at it. It's cute.
Sure.
I mean, if a 20-year-old guy did it, then that would be tilt. But when a 15-pound helpless child poops in your hand, it's really cute. No, I mean that's the worst of it. She's sleeping well. She's generally just got a good disposition, and I work from home, so I get to see her a lot. So it's great.
That's great.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
That's awesome. Now, if people wanted to get your books, you can also get them on audible.com, right?
They can, yeah, and there's actually a free promotion that Audible runs, which is that if you sign up for a free trial of their service, you can get any audiobook for free. Of course, you'd want to get either of my books for free.
Yes.
And then, it's on Audible. It's pretty much everywhere books are sold.
Okay. Awesome. And if people want to get in touch with you for coaching, they go to jaredtendlerpoker.com.
They can, yeah. And I've actually just launched a new website also, jaredtendler.com, which kind of has more of my like non-poker people on there as well. So
Okay. What percentage would you say you do of coaching for, you said you do like stock traders and sports athletes and poker?
it's probably like 90-10, like 90% poker players.
Okay.
Right now. Yeah.
And 10% other?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've got the number one ranked pool player in the world as a client, which is cool.
Cool.
Yeah, we've been working together for a couple of years. So, he actually won a world championship right after my daughter was born. So it was a pretty cool week to see. Obviously, there was a slight edge to daughter being born in terms of the one that had more importance, but second to that was him winning world championship, which is fun.
I would think I would be almost, was ever disconcerting listen to the day traders and realizing, geez, our entire economy is being run by people who are emotionally imbalanced and just following.
Oh, not even emotionally imbalanced. They're bigger degenerates than poker players.
Oh,
I don't. Is that possible?
it is.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
no, it's
Oh, yeah.
gambling.
Oh, yeah.
It's the same thing.
It is. Yeah. No, they degenerate up, and if you've seen Wolf of Wall Street, they partake in extracurricular activities like the rest of the poker players do.
Oh, okay. So that's pretty accurate then, huh? That movie.
Oh yeah. I mean, maybe to a lesser degree now. It's not quite the 80s anymore, but it's still a if you have
People are there for the people are there for the rush as much as for the monetary reasons, I'm sure, or they're related.
Yeah. Right on. Did you have any other questions, Mike?
You got any? How about in the future here? You're obviously a successful writer and coach. Is there anything else that you have planned?
Got in the works.
A dream in the
I do have.
If you want to say fitness model, man, you could admit to anything with us. It doesn't have to be narrowly related to your field.
Most fitness models I think are over 5 feet tall. No, I'm 5'7". I'm not that small, but I'm certainly no Adonis.
Photoshop, man, Photoshop.
Yeah, exactly. No, I've got ideas that I can't share as far as poker goes, but I do have one thing I want to do really badly, which could be 5 years away, but is taking that inchworm concept and blowing out into like a mainstream kind of mass market, not like a non-poker book, because I think it's just such an important concept that really solves a lot of peripheral issues when people understand basically how to learn more efficiently, and that's a big one. So it's kind of like a longer term goal. I mean, it's a completely different thing to take on. But as far as poker goes, I'm doing more seminars these days. I've been involved with the WPT boot camp, so I'm doing a boot camp in February out in Vegas, and probably another couple throughout the year. Other than that, just kind of continuing to enjoy fatherhood and enjoy the work that, writing the books were major undertaking. So
Sure.
It actually made me a much better coach. And now I kind of get to enjoy the byproduct of that, which is that, my coaching sessions are more efficient for me too. And so I feel more competent and capable, and kind of all works together. So.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think I remember on your podcast, I thought this was interesting here, not even just your clients, but people who've read the book are thanking you. Didn't some guy win a bracelet? Was it this past summer? And the first thing he did was thank you. You had no idea who he was? Is that am I remembering that correctly?
No, he was a client.
Oh, he was a client. Okay. I thought it was somebody
yeah.
who like read the book and thank you. You're like, oh, who is, I would think that would even be
More,
that
would be just as rewarding, but okay. No, that was a client.
Yeah, no. It's been.
I was going to say that the inchworm concept, you really could take that on as that's kind of a little niche market that you've produced and come up with. And yeah, I could see that. And, like you said, 3, 4, 5 years or whatever, blowing that out into many other aspects other than just poker.
Yeah. I'm glad you see that. Thanks. I mean, the ability to do it is going to require more people, and I kind of have to find the right partners to help. It's just I'm not a writer. I mean, I'm a decent writer, but like writing a book requires having help, and so kind of keep grinding away at it and see what shows up.
Well, man, we really appreciate your time today. It's been great fun.
Absolutely, Mike. Good to talk to you, Steve. Enjoyed it, man, and happy to come back on if you guys want me.
Okay, sounds good.
I think we'll definitely take you up on that offer.
Okay.
Right.
Have a great day, man.
All right, sounds good. See you
Okay,
guys.
take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, we hope you guys enjoyed the interview with Jared Tendler. It was a lot of fun for us. It was good to have him on the show. You guys can reach us on Twitter at you got Heads Up Poker at HUP Podcast. You can get us on Facebook. You can friend me, Steve Barton. Under that, we've got Heads Up Poker Podcast. If you type that in, it'll come up. You can check out our blog at headsuppokerpodcast.blogspot.com. Or even better, you guys can email us at headsuppokerpodcast@gmail.com. We love getting your emails. Let us know what you would like to hear. What do you like? What do you dislike? Do you want to hear more strategy? Would you like more interviews? We're doing this show for you guys, and we're very grateful that you're listening. And thank you very much. Have a great rest of the day.
Now, of course, people ask me all the time. They say to me, what is the secret to success? The first rule is trust yourself. But what is most important is that you have to dig deep down and ask yourselves, who do you want to be? Not what, but who. And I'm talking about not what your parents and teachers want you to be, but you. I'm talking about figuring out for yourselves what makes you happy, no matter how crazy it may sound to the people. So rule number one is, of course, trust yourself no matter what anyone else thinks. And of course, rule number two is break the rules. We have so many rules in life about everything. I say break the rules, not the law, but break the rules. It is impossible to be a maverick or a true original if you're too well behaved and don't want to break the rules. You have to think outside the box. That's what I believe after all. What is the point of being on this earth if all you want to do is be liked by everyone and avoid trouble? The only way that I ever got any place was by breaking some of the rules. Which of course brings me to rule number 3. Don't be afraid to fail. Anything I've ever attempted, I was always willing to fail. You can't always win, but don't be afraid of making decisions. You can't be paralyzed by fear of failure, or you would never push yourself. You keep pushing because you believe in yourself and in your vision. And you know that it is the right thing to do, and success will come. So don't be afraid to fail. Which brings me to rule number 4, which is don't listen to the naysayers. I mean, how many times have you heard that you can't do this, and you can't do that, and it has never been done before? As a matter of fact, I love it when someone says that no one has ever done this before, because then when I do it, that means that I'm the first one that has done it. So pay no attention to the people that say it can't be done. I always listen to myself and said, yes, you can. And that brings me to rule number 5, which is the most important rule of all. Work your butt off. Now, I've always believed leaving no stone unturned. Muhammad Ali, one of my great heroes, had a great line in the 70s when he was asked, how many sit-ups do you do? He said, I don't count my sit-ups. I only start counting when it starts hurting. When I feel pain, that's when I start counting, because that's when it really counts. That's what makes you a champion. That's the way it is with everything. No pain, no gain. But let me tell you, it is important to have fun in life, of course. But when you're out there partying, horsing around, Someone out there at the same time is working hard. Someone is getting smarter and someone is winning. Just remember that. But if you want to win, there's absolutely no way around hard work. None of my rules, by the way, of success will work unless you do. I've always figured out that there's 24 hours a day. You sleep 6 hours. You have 18 hours left. Now, I know there's some of you out there now and says, well, wait a minute, I sleep 8 hours or 9 hours. Well, then just sleep faster, I would recommend. Just remember, you can't climb the ladder of success with your hands in the pocket. That takes me to rule number 6, which is a very important rule. It's about giving back. Whatever path that you take in your life, you must always find time to give something back. Something back to your community, give something back to your state or to your country. Let me tell you something, reaching out and helping people will bring you more satisfaction than anything else you've ever done. Remember those 6 rules. Trust yourself, break some rules, don't be afraid to fail, ignore the naysayers, work like hell, and give something back.